Evening once again. You are all welcome to the Distinction webinar series. We're excited to have you all here today, and thank you for taking your time this weekend to join us on this exciting discussion on AI and the future of career opportunities. I have very uh, interesting and special guests today with me. So we have Dr. Khalil Muhammad with me and Dr. Sani. Unfortunately, Andre was not able to join, but I'm still very excited and believe Sadiq and Khalil will do justice to this uh, topic today. So I'm Faiz Bashir, the CEO and co-founder of FlexiServe and Distinction Labs. Over the past few months, we've been hosting this exciting webinar series, and today's webinar is a very important one for everyone here. As we are all aware, AI is now shaping the world, and we we are going to hear from our distinguished guests, the AI and the future of career based on their in-depth experience over the years. So before we get started, I'll quickly introduce Dr. Sadiq Sani, who has a solid background in AI ML, having worked with British Telecom as a research manager for future cyber technologies. He led machine learning and AI projects at BT. He also contributed to research initiatives at Robert Gordon University, focusing on knowledge discovery and natural language processing. Sadiq has been into research in several areas, and he is currently at AWS, where he is working on machine learning AI with the intersection of security. So it's going to be an exciting uh, insight from Dr. Sadiq today. And Khalil, who both Khalil and Sadiq are fortunate to go to the same school, university. It's a pleasure to have them both on this webinar today during an exciting time like now. He is also an AI ML scientist with a strong focus on recommender systems and personalization. He is currently at Storytel, where he develops AI-driven solutions to help customers discover books based on personalized recommendations. He has also worked with Conjura and Hertz, where he built customer segmentation and led scoring modules that enhanced business insight and sales. His academic background includes PhD in recommender systems from University College Dublin, and he has published several papers on opinion-based ranking and recommendation systems. You are both highly welcome, and I'm sure the audience are looking forward to hear all the different areas AI is, disrupting or the new opportunities is creating. So before we get started, just to give a quick background of our topic for today, you know, there are so many key facts and statistics about AI, the threat to jobs, and so on. The International Labour Organization estimates that more than 80 million jobs could be automated by AI-related technologies. Personally, for me, I think this is even, underestimated. And for Goldman Sachs, it predicts that up to 300 million jobs globally may be exposed to automation. For the first time in modern history, white-collar jobs face greater risk than manual jobs because AI excels at tasks involving language, writing, analysis, and knowledge processing. This is huge. This really means a lot. Previously, when there's always threat to jobs, it's more about the blue collar jobs. For the first time, I'm pretty sure majority of us today already use AI to do most of these knowledge-based tasks, and that's why it can be uh, scary if you think of it from this perspective. Sam Altman warned that roles involving sitting in front of a computer will be the first to change. Just a few years ago, it's a different story, but things are really changing and changing very, very fast. McKinsey estimates that AI could create up to 90 million new jobs if societies adapt quickly. While there are threats, there are opportunities, but I'll leave the experts to tell us more on this today. The World Economic Forum forecasts that 6 in 10 workers will require reskilling by 2027. And more, the statistics continue. So this is real, it's already happening, even at FlexiServe. We've seen how AI is already transforming how we do things. So we'll jump right into the conversation, and I'll start by, uh, sorry, yeah, Dr. Sadiq Sani, who I said I'm fortunate to go to the same university. We were even roommates at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa universities, and it has been really, exciting journey since then. We're excited about computers and so on. And now, you know, with AI, yeah, for him, he has, he has been in this era. Dr. Sadiq, you've evolved across many eras of software engineering, uh, from, at the time when AI was barely known, when we were in university, we were not talking about data science then and so on, but immediately you left ATBU, I think since your master's, you jumped into data science. With no AI experience, then what inspired your decision to pursue AI and data science?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so thanks, Faiz, for the invite and for the very generous introduction. And thanks to the audience for also attending the seminar series. I guess to start off, I am more on the conservative side of like all this AI revolution that's happening at the moment and all the hype around it. Because if you think of it, like this isn't the first time we've been here where people felt AI was going to transform the world and it was going to change everything. In fact, historically, AI has been here for quite a while. And what we tend to define, even before like maybe the word artificial intelligence became popular, but just computing itself, people always felt computers were here to sort of automate away everything people did, or computers were some sort of superior intelligence, and we can expect computers to sort of make us obsolete and they are the future. So I think this is another just phase in quite similar to what has come before. Albeit, maybe computers at the moment, they're the most capable they've ever been. And, we're starting to see some sort of impressive um, results from the use of these technologies. But again, I think if you went back a couple of years, even when we had technologies that were more primitive than this, people would have probably felt equally at awe, right? You know, that you have this thing which is now able to do the work of many people. If you took spreadsheets, for example, they replace what you needed, maybe specialist accountant people to do. Now you can do that with a spreadsheet. If you think about, yeah, Office Suite, Microsoft Word gives you now the as an individual the opportunity to type your own documents without needing a dedicated secretary typist to do that. So that's kind of what these, I guess, digital technology was designed for, right? You know, it's to continue to sort of simplify these things, but also to enable people. And the more they enable us to do things, the more we want from them, the more we um, sort of find use cases where we would like to use them. So yes, AI is another now new another leap in technology. We're getting automation that's sort of different to what we've had before. Again, I would think it's just slightly different because we've always had automation, but whereas before we needed to sort of empirically code every decision point, we wrote exactly what we wanted the application to do. Now we have an application that can sort of make these decisions by itself independently. And yeah, so in such case, you know, it kind of feels again like we've taken another step forward towards this superior intelligence from this electronic device. But of course, like I said, you know, we've been here before in history, and yeah, I think definitely this will change the world in ways, but also like we probably shouldn't over exaggerate like um, the impact of this technology.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That- Thank you for starting on a positive note. I believe many who might be very scared or feeling threatened, uh, Sadiq is giving you the hope that you've gone through some of these cycles, and hopefully this one will also, we'll all quickly adapt. But just to go further before I jump to Khalil, from your experience uh, in your academic and career, what the quick advice you'll give a computer scientist today or software engineer when it comes to data science and artificial intelligence?
So I guess in general, computer science, for anyone who's interested in that, I would say still go for it. I think expertise and excellence is always valuable. As they say, it's always less crowded at the top. And as we've seen, like even with the advance in AI technology, we saw actually in this year, 2025, like from multiple AI companies paying out like literally hundreds of millions of dollars to individuals to poach AI talent, right? So they're trying to poach people. They're not paying, I mean, for all the promises that they're making for what AI can do, they're not saying we don't need this intelligence now. Like, let's just use AI to give us these good ideas that we can feed into our AI models to build the next generation of model. They actually went out to hire people at a premium. You know, there were individuals who were being given offers in excess of hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, just one individual to sign up to a company and bring their expertise to that company. So I would say study hard, pursue your passion, and also, yeah, just try to excel at what you do, right? Also, even for people who are non-technologists, AI still remains a tool. So similar to like data science and machine learning before that, it's a tool that you apply to different industries. So even with like AI today, how you would apply it in, say, the field of, I don't know, medicine would differ from slightly from how you'd apply it in law, right? And the person who brings that domain expertise also, they would dictate how you want it applied in that field. So there are many slight nuances in every field for how you would apply AI that's best also kind of achieved with the help of experts in those fields. So pursue your passion, any area you want to apply this to. I would say, yes, invest in knowing that field, knowing that area, being an expert in that area. Domain knowledge is always valuable. It was valuable before because that's kind of how you needed that domain expertise in the ancient way AI was done. You needed that domain expertise. That was what you tried to capture and encode in AI systems. We went to machine learning where you needed data, but still domain expertise produced that data. And now, even in the field of AI, what's a valuable output from this AI models will be determined by domain expertise. Like if an AI tells me a piece of X-ray image shows there's some malignant disease in it, as a layperson, I don't know if that's correct or not. So you still need that domain expert who understands that to be able to assess that, yes, this AI is telling me the correct thing. And maybe these are places where it got it wrong. So these are the guardrails I need to put in place to make sure we get the best benefit from this AI and it doesn't hallucinate and tell us, something which is completely wrong. So pursue your passions. I think what we current fields of study will still be relevant, at least in the near future. And I don't think there's anyone alive today that can really tell you how this is all going to play out. So for the time being, humans are still relevant. We still play a big part in this. And your expertise, you may find even with AI that actually it might even be more valued, right? Because before this whole AI hype started, some of these people were never given these sort of offers for hundreds or tens of millions of dollars to go join a company. So yeah, you may find yourself actually being even more valuable simply because of that domain expertise that you bring.
Yeah, so thank you for that. What I gather is there's no shortcut. You still need to be work hard and be really good at what you do. Like the way they say it, people that maybe AI will not replace everyone, but it will replace those that are not taking advantage of AI in their specific areas. So jumping to Dr. Khalil, uh, remember we've been, it's been quite a long journey back in the days in university, and you're one of the, early gigs I knew that I look up to, used from Q Basic to C Sharp, all these technologies, Silverlight, Flash, they have come and gone. And you've also been in this AI field for a very long time. And coincidentally, you are not just a techie, you are also a business guy because I learned a lot about business from you, whether you know it or you do not. But one specific incident I'll remember is, very long time, maybe around 2006, 7, when you told me your minimum rate then for any project is $500. And that was a lot of money. Maybe my yardstick was $100 there. I said, wow, I have to copy from this guy. But anyway, with all this vibe coding happening today and so on, how have you been able to evolve, and still remain very relevant and, at the top of the game?
Thank you, Faiz, for having us here. And it's such an honor to be here with all the 124 people in attendance. And of course, Dr. Sadiq, my friend as well. Um, Yeah, I think what you've said is I'm really old because all these technologies, these were like 10, 20 years ago. Uh, but yeah, thankfully I have been around the block. And I think early on, I have always known that I enjoy building things and having fun along the way. And it's always a huge plus when you build something that is useful. So when I started, just around the time we met, actually a bit earlier than that, I was fortunate to have started when there weren't a lot of resources, and there wasn't a lot of inspiration. And that meant, and this was almost around the same time you were also into it, but this meant that there wasn't a lot of competition. And it also meant that there weren't lots of opportunities, which means you need to do a lot of selling. I remember building a software for some notable figure in the current Nigerian government. No point mentioning names. And when we told him the price of the software, he looked at the CD and he was like, just the CD? And he was like, I can buy this from the road. He didn't understand the difference between a disc and the software that was contained within the disk at the time. Very hilarious. And now he's leading a very prominent position. So hopefully that education is good. Um, so I'm one of those people that was self-taught, like a lot of us on this call, whether it's in software or not. And because of the scarcity of learning resources and social networks and internet and books, I had to focus on building a strong fundamental. That's kind of the hint of what Dr. Sadiq was saying about being an expert. If you don't have those resources, the little you have, you become really good at it. And that's what had carried on. Little did I know that taking, you know, having a continuous knack for learning, focusing on fundamentals, and having a passion for building things would lead me to where I am at the moment. And through school and work, I've jumped across like different types of roles and industries. And I'm saying this because to kind of hint at what change and adaptability brings on board. Everything I did, everything I have done was dictated by the environment I found myself in. And I adapted relatively easily because I had a knack for learning, just like all of you here. And I liked focusing on the core aspect, but I also have the passion for building things. Having those motivations made it a bit easier for me to understand when to drop a technology, when to take a new path in life. And sometimes it's not voluntary. You're just minding your business and Microsoft stops supporting Silverlight. No, we didn't have a lot of electricity, Sadiq. We had a UPS back then, and you had to code quite fast to get things working. Yes, those were beautiful times. I miss them. But now we're talking about a world with AI. And I think with AI, adaptability and scale acquisition now will become more accessible. Everyone can go to ChatGPT and ask a question, which means you can learn anything you want to learn. But in situations where you need to adapt, you could also ask this AI for tips. Whether it's right or wrong, you'll get some answer, right? It's totally up to you to determine that. This means that those of us that leverage AI are more likely to experience a richer career, right? There are nuances to this, but this is my thesis that if you learn how to use this AI, learn when it works, when it does not work, and how to apply it to your career, you're more likely to have a richer one. But then again, because everybody now has AI, it's going to be easy for everyone to be average, right? Because we're all Googling or chat GPTing from the same source. So you now have to go back to that motivation or what Dr. Sadiq was saying about being an expert. You now have to dig deeper to see why are you doing this? And then you can find a way to stand out. But just simply being able to ask an AI and get an answer back does not make you any better than the next person that can do it. So what makes you stand out? That's what you must use AI for, and that would help you adapt. It didn't help me because I didn't have AI at the time, but now it's helping me So yeah, I'm adapting a lot more.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. And, from what I gathered is being a lifelong learner is really important. And that's our vision at Distinction, to create a world of lifelong learners. And because things are moving even faster now, then it means you have to adapt much quickly, and knowledge and information is accessible to everyone. It means you have to do extra to really differentiate and continue to remain relevant. Before I go back to Dr. Sadiq and talk about security, I believe we have some software engineers here, and vibe coding recently, it has become something of a thing, really. And personally, we are experiencing this at FlexServe. For us, it has been very good experience. It has made us significantly more productive and so on. And coincidentally, you introduced me to Cursor, and it turned out to be a very good introduction. But just to be maybe for the software engineers in the house today, how has been your experience with vibe coding, and what's gonna be your advice to them?
Yes, very good question there. I should preface this by saying that because I have been coding for so long, I'm going to have a slight bias towards vibe coding. And there's an argument I had from a friend recently saying that if we give birth to a child who hasn't learned how to code before and just kind of grew up in this world, will they see things the way I see things? And my answer was no, because, time changes. But if there is value in getting an opinion from someone who has been doing this when all you had was a textbook, there wasn't the internet to see what vibe coding does right now. And vibe coding means, you just tell the AI, build me a software that tracks restaurant orders, and it just builds the entire thing and you do nothing, right? Um, it's quite a marvel to see, but there's also a lot of fear coming from someone who has a little experience in it. So I do try out vibe coding, but at the same time, I tend to differentiate between vibe coding, which is you simply ask the AI to do the entire thing, versus asking it for little things and kind of keeping an eye on what happens. I think that if I'm to expand on this slightly to think around where it's handy, I think when you have a big thing to do in general, whether you're in software engineering or elsewhere, there is an inertia to starting anything big. Now, what vibe coding does is for it to reduce the effort it takes for you to get started. So it builds a scaffold for you. And if you have some experience, you can easily, tailor that vibe coded thing to where you need it to be. Now, I want to expand on this, which I have some opinions on, but I don't know how much time we have because I'm very interested in this particular topic. So I will yield to Faiz, and if there's a follow-up question, then I can expand on it.
Yeah, we may have opportunity to come back to it.
Okay.
But personally, I see, like you rightly said, it will take some time, maybe before things really evolve. But the example I always give is maybe, let's say, building a website and so on. People started with writing raw HTML code and maybe some PHP and so on. WordPress came, and now I think it's really hard to find someone building a website, writing the raw HTML code and so on. So it's like phase by phase. It will take time, but I think paying attention, there are startups that are already taking advantage of this, and like you said, moving really fast, disrupting things. For me, I think it's important to really pay attention to that. So maybe if time permits, we can talk more if the audience have more interest in this. But coming back to Dr. Sadiq, uh, you know, I believe we have non-software people here, so maybe we can talk less technical and generally talk about, just like you started hinting, uh, AI applies to every field, and so on. So for everyone on the call today, if you give them like practical steps, of what they should pay attention to remain relevant, and be able to grow in their career, say in the next 12 months, how would you, advise them?
So, yeah, so I think going back to the point of vibe coding, and I think that's also kind of related to this, is I think at the end of the day, ownership is important, right? So you can use code to help you write code, but long term, you should understand that you own that code. You own making it work well, function correctly. And for all the hype around vibe coding, I think maybe some startup companies might be more amenable to it simply because if you haven't built a strong legacy or if you don't have a reputation to protect, I think you can be a bit more cavalier, right? You can afford to take more chances. But of course, AI hallucinates. It produces stuff that isn't actually real. And sometimes it produces bloated code, which isn't really easy to maintain. So I think I saw someone in the comment put it, uh, made a comment on this. There's a difference between vibe coding and AI assisted coding, which is where the developer leads. And for me, still, I think that's sort of, particularly for more established industries or where you're concerned about stuff like security of the software that you build and not having bugs that may be very, very difficult to find later on. That's a sweet spot, right? Use it as much as um, as much as possible, but understanding that you, at the end of the day, own that code. You're responsible for it. So you should understand what's been written there. You should understand if something went wrong, how you might be able to dig in and debug it. And I think that's also for every field you're in, not just software engineering. I think that's the same advice I would give. Try to find, in fact, as a mechanism, you can wake up every day and think, like, whenever you want to do something, can I use AI to do this? Or where would AI fit into this, right? And definitely use it. But at the end of the day, understand that you are responsible for what AI produces, right? So you should understand enough of it such that if it produces, first of all, validate the output. We've seen, I think it was recent, like some top consulting firm produced a report, which was 100% vibe coded, produced by AI because I was in coding. And it even included citations that were completely hallucinated. They were completely fabricated. And that was a PR disaster because that was a top consulting firm that was paid a lot of money, I think probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce that report. And actually someone just sat down and used AI to produce it, and AI hallucinated a lot of things in it. So that would definitely, for me, raise a lot of questions with regards to that company. Why didn't someone check it? And if that was what I wanted as a client, then why didn't I just go to AI and produce it, right? Why am I paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars or how much else they paid them? So as a professional, you should take 100% ownership of the output you produce. Use AI as much as possible, but definitely verify the stuff that comes out that it makes sense, and that this is the sort of thing that you want to give to your client or you want to give out to whoever your customer is. And this is, again, brings us right back to the first point I made, that there are no shortcuts in life, right? AI is here to help, and it will continue to be an assistant, because that's, for me at least, the current AI capability we have. For me, that's the role I see it playing. It will be an assistant, not a replacement for human expertise. So yes, definitely use it to accelerate you. If I have to write something, and if I have to write, even if it were a report, I would try to get AI to do a lot of the fleshing out of the details if I can. But main bullet points would be mine. And also at the end of the day, before I submit that to anyone, I will have to proofread it. I will have to proofread it. I have to make sure that it hasn't hallucinated and put in statistics that I don't know where they come from, for example, or how I can be able to back that up. So definitely follow your passion, continue your education, try to be an expert at what you want, at what you're interested in. Use AI as much as possible, but definitely validate the output of this AI and understand that, even when AI produces something for you, you're ultimately responsible for the output that you're giving to either your customer, your client, or whoever you are kind of working for.
Thank you for that beautiful response. One key takeaway for me is ownership, right? And as a founder, I can't emphasize how that is important. It's really, it can be very, daunting if you give someone a task and maybe someone just makes a pull request. He doesn't even take it through, or is it working as expected? Is this what the requirement says, right? Or you have a report like the example you gave, someone submits a report or is a proposal, it's not really meeting the expectation. So taking ownership, I believe, will make you stand out, especially in this age where the tool can do some of these basic things, right? The common things, but someone that understand the big picture, let me put it that way, what's the end goal, and am I delivering results, that meet that end goal? It will really make you stand out and differentiate. So talking, you mentioned about security, and now you've been into security, expert in that field, and combining with machine learning and AI, doing a lot of stuff around it. So can you tell us more about, in two parts, I will say the question. One is, as security is becoming more important, even in this AI age where people can, use, uh, create fake content and videos and so on. Uh, what will be your advice for someone that wants to go into cybersecurity now? What should they focus on, and so on? And how does the second part of the question is, how was the effect or impact of security with all these AI technologies, advancing?
Cool. So I think interestingly, again, at the risk of making, because as I mentioned at the start, like I don't think anyone can, with any high degree of precision, predict what the future look like. So at the risk of kind of contradicting myself and making a prediction, I think security will continue to be a growing area um, going forward, simply because AI itself introduces a lot of um, potentially introduces a lot of security issues. One, in terms of adversaries themselves using AI to help them achieve their goals, but also largely because AI itself does have vulnerabilities. And one issue also that I again that maybe isn't mentioned often enough, that is a cause of concern for me. The more we deploy AI into everything we do, we know that the top models, there are just a handful of them. So before, in machine learning, every company would build their own custom model. which meant you didn't know what data it was trained on. You didn't know what machine learning model was even behind that service. So as an outsider, without inside knowledge, you didn't know much. Now you know it's likely ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or one of those models. So your understanding of that, the behavior of that model, so a threat actor can have access to that model. They can understand its behavior, understand its limits, and that then gives them a high likelihood that they can find ways that they would want to attack, that they could effectively attack or compromise your system. So cybersecurity will, I think, will continue to be relevant because definitely, like even recently, you've seen the impact of outages by certain cloud providers. It can cause huge issues. We saw, in fact, it could even go beyond just the fact that, I don't know, Netflix is down or something. You can have bank accounts being affected. You can have airline systems being affected because because a lot of these are now have a presence in the digital world. So this is a sort of scale of what a cyber attack, this scale of disruption a cyber attack could cause. And I think, as I said, as the supply chain is narrowing, any poison of that supply chain, any vulnerability in that supply chain can have a big impact, right? A much bigger impact than before when people had individualized systems. So in terms of what someone who is interested in a career in cybersecurity should focus on, going back to the first part of the question, it's again, I guess what I mentioned before, fundamentals they don't change. Everything we've built on those fundamentals. So understand the fundamentals of cybersecurity, of computing, of networking. Those would continue to be relevant because all of these things sit on top of that, right? They're just technologies that sit on top of that. The stack is still the same at the bottom. It's not; these are just being added on top. So, having a good understanding of that foundation is important, and then of course anything that's relevant to the more modern stuff, because there's issues now, as I highlighted, about how AI models can be compromised. So someone may want to choose to learn about that, focus on that to kind of develop expertise in that niche. But I think even without that, traditional cybersecurity knowledge will continue to be relevant because, again, there's still the networking layer that could get compromised or could get attacked. There's still databases underneath that could get. There's still operating systems that could all get attacked, and those would still most likely be protected using traditional means. Than anything kind of fancy developed in the last couple of years.
Thank you for that. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, go for it. It's still very, very relevant, even more relevant in this age of AI. So coming back to Dr. Khalil, he's still talking about opportunities now, even with all the threats and so on, new opportunities are coming up. And now we see new categories of careers coming up, like model evaluation, AI operations, prompt engineering, AI safety, and so on. So from your experience, what are the opportunities for young people that are still in school about to graduate? What should they really focus on? Maybe especially if they don't want to go into software coding and so on. What are the new roles that you see emerging?
Yeah, okay. Good question there. So my answer is going to be for anyone that is young and is below 60 years of age, right? Because I suppose your career doesn't mean you're just starting, but mostly relevant for more younger folks. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, because I when you think around career, I have seen a lot of jumps. Like I've had situations where I needed to take a big step from one area to another, and there was lack of resources there. And I suppose on this call, there are people like that as well. So what should we focus on? Yes, someone is posting distinction. So start at distinction. That's my advice. But jokes aside, I think it's really hard to kind of predict the future and the roles that would show up. And this may be a disappointing answer, but I see it also as a good answer, right? Like about 3 years ago when GPT came out, everyone was saying, there's going to be so many prompt engineers in the world. Everyone has to be a massive prompt engineer. And what had turned out to be a role now has become a skill that everyone needs to have, right? So things are changing so fast. But I'll tell you what I think is valuable in this changing world, right? Because nothing is uncertain. What is certain is that AI will continue to make the cost of generating content cheaper, right? It could be the cost of generating a legal contract. It could be the cost of generating architectural diagrams with the 3D. Um, Whether it's correct or not is a separate thing, but it's going to help do these things much faster than we can. The part that AI hasn't been able to make so much impact on, which I think humans are needed, is the verification, right? Because without going into the logic, there are so many ways it could go wrong, and there's so many ways it could be jeopardized. I know in the early stages of GPT, some people will create a fake profile on LinkedIn because OpenAI will scan LinkedIn and then it will have their profile with that particular wrong information there. So people use AI for good, while others might use it for malicious purposes. So where does it stand for you thinking about your career and thinking about generation and validation of content? What data shows is that there's an increase in demand for experts. That hasn't changed. Dr. Sadiq has mentioned, Facebook mentioning hiring people for tens of millions or whatever the amount is. But also the job market that was supposed to have shrunk and all software engineers that were supposed to have lost their jobs are still getting jobs. So what's happening? It's that need for expertise that wouldn't disappear. And the expertise is not in your ability to write code because we have the generation sorted out. It is two things mostly, or three things: the expertise, being able to understand what you're building, the taste, and the people skill. So with the expertise, we're talking about people who have spent a lot of time understanding the basics and understanding the concepts around those basics. The taste is a skill that you get from the experience, right? It's knowing between good and not good. I'll give you an example of taste. We all read books. AI can generate 1 million books. Recently, I was exposed to a Nobel Award winner in literature who had this book, and the entire, I think, first chapter or synopsis, I can't remember what section it was written without any punctuation mark. And that was really fancy. Apparently, those are the kind of things that get you recognition. And AI wouldn't do that, right? But people saw that as taste. It's the same thing when you see a judge in a cooking show, they put a lump of food in their mouth and they can tell you all the ingredients there. In your field of software or whatever it is you do, whether you're a mechanic, an architect, a builder, what does taste mean to you? Capitalize on that. That is where the new roles will come up to. The last part is the people skill. The only reason we have jobs right now is that we build solutions for people with people, right? So for people, how could you work with people better, right? There's massive opportunities in there, and new roles will be created where AI is facilitating that. How do you work for people? Whether it's contract, whether it's write a good email. I think there's a term called forward deploy engineers, right? Things like that. Those are just fancy names for people who can solve problems, but could also do other things at the top. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is be good at what you're doing, but if possible, hoover around these areas. And most of those new roles will be fancy names. For deployed engineer would be someone who is good in sales and with people. Having a taste will make sure that you keep growing in your org. And then also having experience will make it be that you're an expert. Yep.
Thank you for that important advice. And I think as we try to round up, going back to Dr. Sadiq. Yeah, you've been in this field with all the discussions, different perspectives. You also, I'm sure you're also looking up to the future, seeing how things are evolving and, having some plans and stuff like that. So in respect to everyone here as well, as maybe your last word or advice, and also to quote Jeffrey Hinton, who is a big believer that AI, nobody can predict what AI can do, but he believes that AI will continue to become really, really powerful. And for me, I take his words very serious. Like he always says, he has been working on this maybe for 50 years, and his advice is when you are doing something and people don't believe in you, then it means you are even on track. Focus on it and continue doing it. And to give one specific example I got from him, he says sometimes you need to intimidate the AI to get what you want. I said, really? And I just started trying it, and it really works. I intimidate AI to get what I want. So, in a summary, with all these, fears, opportunities, and so on, how do you see the future, and what's your last word to the audience?
So I think it's a very common British slogan: keep calm and carry on. And I think that's all I can say, right? Because as I've mentioned, no one can really predict what the future would look like. Also, in terms of technology, I have my own personal reservations, even about the technology itself and how far it can take us, right? But of course, I can't bet against where the technology is going because there's lots of money being poured into this. There's lots of expertise currently going into this. And for every challenge that arises, there's probably people who would work hard to find solutions to those challenges. But also at the same time, of course, humans, we've also faced lots of challenges in the past. Some of them have equally been almost existential. People have thought, things will never be the same again. Yet, we are still here. We still have a functioning society and all of that. So I would say keep calm, carry on with, but definitely, also they say like nothing, there's nothing that's guaranteed except change, right? So change will always happen. So also be very nimble, be ready to change, be ready to adapt. Luckily, like this whole AI thing, to be honest, is easy. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. You're using a technology that someone's already pre-built. Before, if you needed artificial intelligence capability, you needed a whole team. You needed people to gather data. You needed to train your own custom model. Now, all you need to know is how to use an existing model, right? So how do I use an existing model? How do I call its API? That's all, and some little programming skills to put everything together. So definitely keep your pulse on what's happening. Don't ignore the change that is happening, but equally keep calm. Like I said, know your fundamentals, know your domain expertise for any domain you're interested in, that you want to work in. If you want telecoms, AI would only help automate or help with things that already exists, right? In telecommunications or whatnot. So the more you know where you want to put AI doesn't deploy itself. We apply it, we take it, we put it here. So if it's code you want, it helps in generating code. If it's reports, if it's to monitor something, if it's to help debug something. So you decide where you want to put the AI, right? So yeah, keep calm, carry on. And also know that at the end of the day, again, the reality of this world is it's not just the technical capability that would determine how AI gets deployed. There are other limitations. Economic return on that AI would also play a factor. This previous times in history where we had capability to do something, and then today it no longer exists, right? There was a time where if you had money, you could buy a ticket and fly supersonic. That was the time of the Concorde. Today, the Concorde doesn't exist. Why? Economics played a part. We have the technology, we've deployed it, we've even used it, but now we've walked back from that. We've walked back. So just because the technology exists and it can do something doesn't mean that necessarily at the end of the day, the future will fundamentally change. People have imagined futures for us for as long as people have had the ability to imagine. Some people thought by now we'd be in flying cars and I don't know, we have implants in our bodies, augmented, we'll be cyber, human beings ourselves. But yet, we are where we are because, lots of other factors like economics, like laws, like trade, all play, and government, all play into this. So yeah, keep calm, carry on.
Thank you for that. I like the part that AI is not rocket science. So anyone that really have interest in this, you don't even necessarily need to be from computer science background and so on. But because AI is important now, it's something you can, jump into a lot of resources online and so on. And relating it to the, people skills, sorry, relating it to the people skills, that also Dr. Khalil highlighted, and stuff like that. You, and with your experience in recommender systems, educational applications, and so on, Dr. Khalil, uh, what will you what will be your what are your thoughts when it comes to personalized learning? And as a closing remark, how would you advise, everyone here in when it comes to using all these technologies to continue to be lifelong learners?
Absolutely. I think one word, um, curiosity. I think uh, you you should be kind to yourself. In the words of Sadiq, Dr. Sadiq, keep calm. But also you should be curious, which means you should try out new tools. It's only when you try it that you build opinions and knowledge about it. I think that learning has been democratized significantly, and we're happy to kind of see platforms like, Distinction giving a more tailored view, as opposed to you struggling to find, what's the right prompt to use, where should I gather this information or that information from, because there's so many tools out there. Learning will continue to be a structured thing, and learning should be something that challenges you, because that's how you build new knowledge or new connections in your brain. And what I would do if I were in your shoe, and that's basically what I do right now, is I have built a catalog of AI tools. so that when I'm reading or when I plan to read or I plan to research, there are certain go-tos that I use. And now it's almost as if I have a million lecturers around me and a million study guides, a million, peers around me, because I can make the AI replicate the behaviors I want. And through that, I'm able to make learning as personable as possible. I think this would be the future, but I also think that while you're doing it, listen to the experts, because I've had a situation which was very hilarious where I was using a top line model and it lied to me about something, but I was quick enough to say, "Don't you think this is wrong?" And it was like, "Yeah, you're right. It's wrong." And then it went ahead as if it didn't make a huge mistake. These are things that normally humans wouldn't have. So when you're curious and you're building those connections, do not fool yourself into thinking because you have these tools, you're not going to learn. Use them to learn and make sure you test your learning accordingly. Yep.
Thank you very much. Before we take one or two questions from the audience, I like to use this opportunity to talk more about lifelong learning and how we are using distinction, for that. So for those of you that don't know, Distinction is an AI-powered teaching and learning platform that empowers any teacher to turn any syllabus into a full course, including notes, videos, flashcards, and quizzes in minutes, and gives every student, an AI agent that personalizes their learning. So for you to get started, just visit distinction.app. If you want to learn, go to distinction.app/learners or scan this QR code. We already have libraries of courses that you can get started. And we have over 50 courses in the AI category, So this is not just for technical people, and you have to use AI for different fields and so on. You can find interesting courses on the distinction.app. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to the AI category and search for any course of your interest to get started. Like you've all heard from Sadiq and Khalil today, how to use AI in your various careers and so on is what will make you stand out, and also taking ownership and thinking of the big picture is really important. So there are courses when it comes to people skills, management, communication, and stuff like that. And we have courses that are CPD accredited, that's Continuum Professional Development in the UK, that accredits some of the courses. So visit distinction.app to get started. And very interestingly, you can as well create your course. If you can't find what you have interest in, just create your course in 2 minutes. And we've seen really interesting courses, people building courses on maybe how to build a rocket, to how do I bake cakes and so on. So go visit Distinction and generate your course of choice. And yeah, going back to Q&A, we have maybe time to take 2 or 3 questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you to go ahead. And Usman, do we have question on the chat that we can take as well? Any questions? So the raise hand button is at the bottom of your video. You can just click that to indicate. Just trying to check the chat.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Faiz, and thank you, Dr. Sadiq. Thank you, Dr. Khalil. My question is that someone asked me yesterday and I don't have an answer. So I said today we have some expert, I'm gonna ask them. So you were asking me that a lot of this company now are not interested in hiring junior candidates. They are more interested in hiring like senior people that have experience. And he was asking me like all these senior engineers, they only get this experience because they are employed from the junior level. So you were asking me what should I advise him to do as a someone who is just getting started and is finding it not easy to get a job. So I said maybe I will ask our experts, what advice do you give those guys that are coming up?
Very good question. And Sadiq or Khalil, anyone wants to take that?
I'll take that. I think that should be a separate talk, maybe that distinction should have for the audience at a later time. I think that what we lack from where we come from, being a minority-based country and race, is that idea of being able to sell yourself, whether locally or internationally. And you could boil the entire thing down to maybe about three things. Number one, you need to be shameless and believe in yourself. Number two, you need to do things that matter. This could be personal projects, there could be proper writing. And number three is you need to make a lot of noise about it. And that's what gets you recognition. So if I were hiring for a position, right, and I said there's no junior, but there's also a junior senior that I'm looking for. And by the way, there are junior roles. It's a bit exaggerated. Now imagine I have two applications in front of me. The first one, someone who has gone to university. The second one, someone who has gone to university, has done a few projects that I can see, and maybe in a blog where it's not just ChatGPT being dumped there, but their own original opinions. Who would I give the job to? Right? The second person. So you need to believe in yourself and be shameless, which means you need to put yourself out there. You need to build interesting things, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're in a biochemistry, do something interesting and make a lot of noise about it before you apply.
Yeah, thank you for that. I see Sabo Aklo. Can you unmute and yeah. Can you unmute? I saw you raise your hands. Okay, before he goes, I have a question here. Maybe Dr. Sadiq can take it. Please, could someone go far into data science and machine learning with R programming?
I would say if you were if your interest was in research, not maybe necessarily, I wouldn't. If you were going to a more applied role, I would say learn Python. It will give you a lot of returns. Yeah, but certainly you can do a lot with R, but I definitely haven't seen it being widely adopted in industry outside of kind of like research roles. I don't know if Khalil has a different experience to mine, but I would definitely encourage you
Absolutely,
to learn
I'm with
Python.
you. Yeah, unless you're like, unless you really want to go into science, don't even touch it. It's a very unpretty language. Stick with Python, okay?
Okay, thank you for that. Then maybe we take this last question, which sounds interesting. As an electrical engineering graduate, what core AI skills should I prioritize now to stay updated and relevant? And maybe this is something I should have not under normal circumstance answer as an electronics engineer. Unfortunately, maybe I turned into, I don't know, software or business. But I think it's all the things that have been said earlier in terms of foundation, knowing your stuff, and for electrical engineering student, I think programming has always been important, so you should still know how to use especially things like, MATLAB and other engineering related tools. And for AI specifically, I think Dr. Sadio Khalil can add more to that.
I think when it comes to AI, so there's two different aspects, right? There's using AI and then there's building with AI. I think when it comes to using AI, there's almost nothing to learn besides just knowing which apps are out there and what they help you with. So if you want to if you want to study something, you want something to summarize and explain a particular topic for you, use an AI. You can use any of the AI apps to do that. If you want to generate diagrams, you can use an AI model to do that. If you, yeah, rather than use if you have a question, rather than a Google search, you can use an AI model to get a particular answer. That's all just using AI. There's literally it's just almost as straightforward as Google search. And then there's building with AI. And building with AI, I would say, is for people who are interested in deploying AI solutions. That's maybe the part that's a bit more technical, but also not very difficult. That would be just knowing your programming language and knowing the developer side of these AI platforms. They tend to have APIs you can call. They tend to have places you can host your own customized version of these. They tend to have frameworks that you can build agents with. So that's more, to be honest, software engineering type of skills. But even before you get to that, definitely for now, the use of AI is virtually, like, I would say, free and low. The bar is really low. So that's where you want to start. And of course, if you know how to use AI very well, it will help you with the second part.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. So in addition, it still goes back to the understanding the fundamentals, understand data, how to work with data and so on. If you want to understand like the AI foundation, then start learning about machine learning, maybe how to train models and so on, just to get idea of the fundamentals, which will help you to be able to even use the existing models and other tools. I'm sure there are a lot of tools in engineering already, that are trying to solve this, and having that foundation is going to help you a lot. And with this, brings us to the end of today's webinar. Been very insightful. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Khalil and Sadiq, for finding the time to educate us, and also to everyone on the call that found it worthy and spared their time to join us. Thank you all, and looking forward to the next webinar. You'll hear from us. Bye.